This is VOA Africa.
Hello, I'm Esther Githui-Ewart. It's Friday, June 25th. Welcome to Africa 54. We continue to work remotely because of the COVID-19 pandemic. But what hasn't changed is our commitment to bringing you the latest and most important news from the African continent and around the world. This is today's Africa 54. Afrigen Biologics expects a decision in mid-July on partners to produce Africa's first COVID-19 vaccine using the mRNA platform, according to the South African startup's managing director. Soraya Ali has the details.
Africa's first mRNA COVID-19 vaccine could soon be produced inside this facility. The World Health Organization picked Afrigen Biologics for the pilot. Now, the South African startup says it expects a decision from partners in mid-July. Petro Teblanche is the managing director.
This is the first step for us in Africa to establish cutting-edge novel technology vaccine production suitable for fast-track rapid response and to ensure that we have vaccine security on this continent.
The $9 million tech transfer hub will make it possible for African companies to manufacture mRNA vaccines in 9 to 12 months. The advanced mRNA technology is used in Pfizer and Moderna shots. They currently require very cold storage. But Teblanche says Afrigen could access technology to produce a thermostable mRNA vaccine that could be kept at temperatures of between 2 to 8 degrees Celsius. Afrigen's facility will be capable of producing a maximum of 10,000 vaccine vials a day. It's also partnered with local manufacturer BioVac, which can produce 30 to 50 million doses a year to distribute across the continent.
That was Soraya Ali of Reuters reporting. Uganda's reinstatement of a coronavirus transportation lockdown through the end of July is squeezing the ability of many people to earn a living. Street market traders are forced to bicycle, walk long distances, or just sleep in the market. Halima Athumani reports from Kampala.
With coronavirus infections soaring and hospitals overwhelmed, Uganda has reimposed a lockdown on movement through July. Transport is banned and only essential workers are allowed into the city. While the aim is to save lives, making a living is once again a struggle for traders like Sauda Namaga, one of many forced to sleep in the market. She wants Uganda's President Yoweri Museveni to ease the restrictions.
We are selling rotten produce, all the bananas, as you can see. We don't have buyers, so we are asking the president, and those who talk to him should tell him to relax the orders. Those who are able to walk to town should be allowed to come and buy.
The situation is even worse for shops not selling food, which Ugandan authorities ordered closed. Ugandan police are being deployed to enforce the commands. Area Chairman Bashir Mwonge says without help, many shops won't survive.
If you keep imposing a lockdown, what do you think is going to happen? This means the country's economy is falling because there's no work being done. We have been appealing to the president to help by suspending rent payments. The economy is crashing because people can no longer maintain their businesses, even when you reopen.
Ugandans living in the countryside are forced to walk for hours to get to town. Lydia Nambogo walked more than 5 kilometers to withdraw money from her savings to feed her family, but the bank office was closed.
I've been selling takeaway food, and I've been earning little money to take care of my family. But we've been locked down, and we don't know what's coming next. The government isn't going to give us food again. They should at least give us some of our little savings.
With Uganda's first lockdown in March 2020, the government gave flour and beans to the urban poor, which many hope will be repeated.
We are going to use some simple means of delivering support to you. And the vulnerable people are known.
Meanwhile, Many Ugandans can only wait for this latest wave of COVID-19 infections to recede while doing their best to keep their heads above water. Halima Athumani for VOA News, Kampala, Uganda.
The World Food Programme says communities in Madagascar are on the verge of starvation, with women and children walking for hours to reach food. Southern parts of the island are suffering through its worst drought in 40 years. Africa 54 Managing Editor Vincent Makori has the details.
Communities in Madagascar are on the verge of starvation. That's according to the World Food Programme, which says resources are scarce in the country after the worst drought in 4 decades. Acute malnutrition has almost doubled in just the last 4 months. These 2 children are orphaned and running out of food. Their carer is also a mother of 3.
I rely on God. Today we have absolutely nothing to eat except cactus leaves that we're trying to clean up. We have nothing left. Their mother is dead and my husband is dead. What do you want me to say? Our life is all about looking for cactus leaves again and again to survive.
David Beasley is WFP's executive director.
It's 7 times worse than it was just a year ago. 7 times more children are in trouble. Why? Because of drought. We're facing the worst drought in over 40 years. And this is an area where people depend on their own agriculture, homegrown school meals, smallholder farmers. This is how they live down here. But with drought, back to back to back, people can't survive. And so the government, partnering with the World Food Program and others, we're doing the best we can. But it's a terrible situation.
The World Food Programme said more than a quarter of people are suffering in one area, and $78.6 million is needed to fight the crisis.
Africa 54 Managing Editor Vincent Makori with that report. Around 140 militia fighters handed over their weapons and surrendered in Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo this week, but some conflict analysts say last month's declaration of martial law will not tackle the root causes of surging violence. David Doyle explains.
They sang, they clapped, and they handed over their weapons. Around 140 rebels surrendered in Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo this week. They are the first to do so since President Felix Tshisekedi announced martial law in the Eastern Ituri and North Kivu provinces. Militia member Jean-Paul de Guige said their work had been to steal and disrupt the peace, but that they had left seeking a better life for their children.
Because those who came before us had a good life. Their kids go to school while ours do not. This is why we sought to leave the bush with our children.
DRC's mineral-rich east has been fractured by conflict since the official end of the country's second civil war in 2003. More than 120 armed groups are now fighting for control of land and natural resources. The violence has surged over the past 2 years, prompting Tshisekedi to declare a state of siege in early May. For Katsanga resident Daishimie Faustine, the surrenders are encouraging.
These bush soldiers bothered us a lot, so it's good if others follow in their footsteps by surrendering. Maybe we will have a lasting peace at home.
But some conflict analysts say the root causes of the bloodshed are not addressed by giving more power to a military with a long documented history of problematic behavior. Last week, the United Nations said sexual violence perpetrated by government troops in eastern DRC could amount to war crimes. In a report, the UN also accused soldiers of diverting weapons to armed groups and cocoa smuggling. While visiting the region last week, Tshisekedi said that a mafia had developed in the army and police, propped up by a wall of silence.
David Doyle of Reuters filed that report. Burkina Faso and the United Nations say a massacre in the northeast of the West African country, in which more than 130 people were killed this month, was carried out mostly by children between the ages of 12 and 14. Armed assailants raided the village of Solhan on the evening of June 4th, opened fire on residents and burned homes. It was the worst attack in years in an area plagued by jihadists linked to the Islamic State and Al-Qaeda. Burkina Faso spokesman Hussein Tambura says many of the attackers were children, prompting condemnation from the UN. Despite interventions from UN peacekeepers and international armed forces, attacks by Islamist extremists are continuing unabated across West Africa's Sahel region, including neighboring Mali and Niger. The White House reportedly began preparations this week to move thousands of Afghans who aided U.S. troops to an interim third country while they wait to apply for special immigrant visas. The move comes amid bipartisan criticism from lawmakers who say the United States is not fulfilling a promise to protect Afghan partners who provided support during the nearly two-decade conflict. VOA's congressional correspondent Catherine Gibson has more.
As the U.S. hits the 50% mark of troop withdrawal from Afghanistan,
Mr. President, any concern about reports that
Afghan President Ashraf Ghani is in Washington meeting with U.S. lawmakers Thursday, ahead of his Friday White House meeting with President Joe Biden to discuss the U.S.-Afghan relationship moving forward.
He'll probably make a request for more assistance, and we'll have to hear what his ask is of the United States. But the commander-in-chief has made the decision to pull our defense forces out. I assume we'll be talking about force protection at the embassy.
McCall and other lawmakers are also calling on the Biden administration to protect the 18,000 Afghans who helped U.S. forces and are now waiting for visas to the United States.
There are thousands of people left that were told they would get an opportunity to come to the United States if they would put their lives and their families' lives on the line, not just their own. This is the right thing to do.
Processing of special immigrant visas takes an average of 800 days. As Taliban violence around Afghanistan in the wake of the U.S. withdrawal grows, Afghans are saying they will be targeted.
We have sacrificed for the U.S. forces in this really important mission for 22 years in Afghanistan. We requesting to the President Joe Biden, this is the right time that take care of us and our families, because we have been faced with a really big risk in Afghanistan.
Those interpreters could be evacuated and accepted for temporary residency by the U.S. territory of Guam, Afghan war veteran Representative Jason Crow told VOA.
The Department of Defense and the U.S. military is ready. The State Department is ready. Guam is ready. We need the decision by the White House to say, let's do this.
But with less than 100 days until the U.S. withdrawal is complete, many lawmakers say it's not clear there is a single person in charge of the process.
I certainly have not heard of any operational commander for making this happen. And at the end of the day, that's what we need. We need an operational plan and an operational person in charge to actually execute this evacuation.
The U.S. has set a September 11th withdrawal deadline from Afghanistan after nearly 2 decades of being engaged in conflict there. Catherine Gibson, VOA News, Washington.
We would like to hear what you think about Africa 54. Join the discussion on Facebook. Our address is Africa 54. We're also streaming our broadcast live on Facebook. Please watch and share our show with your friends. Also check out our headlines 24/7 on voaafrica.com. Coming up, the second time's the charm for an old Kenyan song and performer. Stay with us. Welcome back to Africa 54. Astronauts make power moves outside the International Space Station. The Northern Hemisphere sees its longest day of the year. Plus, do you ever get the feeling you're being watched? Details in the Week in Space from VOA's Arash Arabasadi.
This week, the Northern Hemisphere experienced the longest day of the year. The summer solstice is a phenomenon that happens not because of Earth's distance from the sun, but because of Earth's tilt toward the sun. NASA's Alex Young says that solar scientists welcome the annual lean.
Depending on the wavelength of light, we can see different features on the sun. We see huge structures in the solar atmosphere. We can see big explosions, things called solar flares or coronal mass ejections. And that's why we like to look at it in all these different wavelengths, because we get a much more complete picture of what's going on in the sun.
Young says studying the sun helps scientists understand solar phenomena that affect our lives, like solar winds and coronal mass ejections, which he calls huge bursts of solar material. These bursts can disturb communication networks on Earth while creating hazardous conditions for astronauts in space. NASA currently has 2 research craft flying close to the sun. Since ancient times, the summer solstice has been an annual highlight observed by British pagans and Druids. In other news, do you ever get the feeling you're being watched? For all the missions Earthlings have flown into space and the countless telescopes on our planet pointing up, scientists say there's a good chance the telescopes from other worlds are pointing back at us. Cornell University's Lisa Kaltenegger says there's little we can do to change our privacy settings.
Hiding is not really an option as long as you have oxygen in the atmosphere. So whether you send a signal or not, they will be clear that there's life on this planet if they have the same knowledge we do, right? And I assume, again, if you're worried about somebody coming and eating you, you're worried about a technological advanced civilization who could travel that distance.
Astronomers recently found stars in our galaxy where someone looking for Earth could find it. To do this, they reverse-engineered a technique for stargazing to instead look back at our home planet. Astronomers calculated more than 1,700 stars in our neighborhood, and the hundreds of probable Earth-like planets around them have an unobstructed view of Earth. And while the late Stephen Hawking warned of making contact with aliens as they could harm us, Kaltenegger says she's not worried.
Honestly, when I look up at the sky, it just looks a little bit friendlier because it's like, ooh, maybe somebody is waving. We just don't know yet.
Finally,
the hatch is open. Great work. Tama and Shane, you guys go be amazing. We'll see you in a few hours. Remember, you are butterflies with biceps today.
And so began this week's mission outside the International Space Station for NASA astronaut Shane Kimbrough and ESA astronaut Tomas Pesquet. The two reprised their roles as electrical engineers when they finished installing and unfurling an updated solar panel on Wednesday. The upgrades are expected to boost power output on the station ahead of visits later this year from paying passengers and film crews. Arash Arabasadi, VOA News.
Malian refugees Amiri Ag Abdullahi and Mohamed Ould Najim met in a Burkina Faso refugee camp after spending much of their youth fleeing Islamist violence and struggling with trauma until they found dance. The young men joined a program founded by an internationally acclaimed Burkinabe dancer that trains marginalized youth as a tool for reconciliation and healing. Claire McDougall has this report from Ouagadougou.
Malian dance students Amri Ag Abdullahi and Mohamed Ould Najim are struggling to master a new routine. For much of their lives, they've been struggling to survive, living in an insecure refugee camp on the Mali-Burkina Faso border after fleeing Islamist militants.
Dance has helped us forget how many of the things we have been through. When we came here, there was sadness, a lot of sadness.
The 3-year program by France-based Burkinabe dancer Salia Sanu aims to help marginalized youth and refugees.
The center has a mission to reach out to youth and refugees in difficult situations, to do cultural and artistic meditation. Through dance, these people can find themselves.
Najim says dance is helping them to express themselves and tell their stories.
When we were at camp in Mentau, we were closed in. I wasn't happy to be alive. I was just living. That was it for me. My life changed with the dance, and I am more at ease than before, and I've overcome a lot of things.
Dance instructor Idrissa Kafando is training the group of 25 students, some of whom are from marginalized backgrounds.
We educate everyone who comes here. Dance can allow you to re-innovate yourself and become another person.
The two young men hope the training will help them become known as dancers, not just part of the 23,000 Malian refugees living in Burkina Faso. Claire McDougall for VOA News, Ouagadougou, Burkina Faso.
A historic motor rally is underway in Kenya. President Uhuru Kenyatta started the powerful 2021 Safari Rally at the Kenyatta International Convention Center in Nairobi. Kenyans lined up Thursday on busy highways to catch a glimpse of the rally cars being driven by not only Kenyan drivers, but also World Rally champions who had never rallied in Africa before. The World Rally Championship Safari Rally is back in Kenya for the first time since 1992 and will see competitors battling it out at the 48,000-acre Soisambu Conservancy. The return of the WRC to Kenya and Africa comes 19 years after being removed from the calendar due to a lack of finance. The iconic rally was first held in Kenya in 1953 to commemorate the coronation of Britain's Queen Elizabeth II. The rally runs through June 27th. A jazz festival billed as the biggest in Africa was cancelled last year due to the global health crisis. This year, it's back to the relief of performers and fans. Here again is David Doyle of Reuters.
For French-Senegalese blues singer Ali, it's good to be back. Since the early 1990s, Senegal's Saint Louis has hosted a popular jazz festival, billed as the biggest in Africa. But last year, amid the global health crisis, it was cancelled for the first time in its history. At the weekend, African rhythms, funk, gospel and blues returned.
I was relieved and everybody was relieved too. And it was a beautiful energy, a beautiful vibration, a beautiful link also between the stage and the audience.
The island of Saint Louis is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, famed for its colonial architecture and pastel-coloured houses. The music emanating from bars, restaurants and hotels was a welcome injection of life to the narrow streets. And of tourists. Street musician Adama Ndao says last year's cancellation had a big impact.
Last year, there was no jazz. Because jazz attracted a lot of tourists, we could play in the streets, so we managed to collect a little money. There was nothing the last year. Today, it's good.
The festival has struggled with dwindling attendance since its days hosting headliners like American pianist Herbie Hancock, who played there in 1996. But it remains a draw for enthusiasts from West Africa and Europe. And for the performers, from the stage to the streets, the return of the festival is music to their ears.
David Doyle of Reuters with that music report. After 29 years, the old hit song Stella from Kenya is making a comeback, as has its legendary singer Freshly Mwamburi. Ethnomusicologist and host of Music Time in Africa, Heather Maxwell, joins the producer of Stella Wangu remix for the story.
Hello, everyone. Joining me from Western Kenya is Guido Kibukosia. He is a longtime producer, a musician, and he has a special relationship to this music video. How are you doing, Guido?
Oh, very well. Thank you, Heather.
Great. So this music video was released in January 2021. It is by the artist Freshly Mwamburi. It already has over 2 million views on YouTube. So Guido, what is your relationship to this song?
I tell you what, Freshly has always been a very good musician. So he was on KBC radio, And I had him. And being a producer, I told him, listen, for this video to get more views, I think we should redo it because the style is old. So let's try and make it a bit more modern. And that is why I think it's really picked up. Yeah, reggae is quite a big hit around here in Kenya.
When was the original song released?
I think it was released in 1993, if I'm not wrong.
Okay. Can you summarize the story?
Okay, the story is this. He's got a girlfriend, and she got a scholarship. He sold his car, he sold so many other things just to get her to Japan. So when she got to Japan, she fell in love with somebody else. So when she comes back, he's going to meet her at the airport. She's with somebody else and with a baby.
What is he singing? Is he just telling the story or is he giving a message warning people?
No, he's just telling us stories like, this is what happened to me, man. You guys, it's just... So everybody's like, oh, poor guy. So what happened to Stella?
Part of the YouTube comments that I was reading that gave me the indication that this was such a big comeback, they were referring a lot to him as a legend. What makes him a legend, Freshly Mwamburi?
He's been there for a while. He's really played alongside groups like Simba Onyeka was a very big group. He was only one of the members that is remaining. All the others passed away, but he's still around.
I see. Another comment that I read said, I was looking for the Kenyan national anthem, and this is what I found. What does that mean?
I don't know. My dad wrote the Kenyan national anthem.
Well, it is a great song. I love it. It does have a good beat. You've done a great job with the remix.
Yeah, I just try to make it appeal to the youth and to the rest of the world.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Well, thank you so much for joining me, Guido.
Thank you so much, Heather. And I hope we'll be in touch more often and share.
I do too.
Thanks, Heather, for that wonderful music selection. And that's our show for today. Be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. From all of us here in Washington, have a great weekend.